going to hit record. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to jump in. All right. So this is the fourth industrial revolution, and what that means for all of us is that we are a world in flux. Now, we all kind of got a taste of this during 2020, but really the fourth industrial revolution started around 2010. And I'm going to do a little history lesson because I'm a homeschool mama, and that's kind of what we do. So I'm going to go over the four industrial revolutions just really quickly to give some context about what they're about, and I'm sure you are aware of them without maybe having named them. I know when I was in 8th grade and in social studies, I learned that there was an industrial revolution, and I thought there was one, and that was the second industrial revolution. But the thing with industrial revolutions is that generally they change transportation and communication. So the first industrial revolution was from 1760 to around 1840, and it changed travel and how people lived and worked because of steam and mechanization. The second industrial revolution happened in around the 1870s to 1914s. This is the one that I learned and probably you learned about. This is when electricity and mass production really came to the fore. It's also when America adopted the Prussian military model and the Prussian education system into America. That's why we have public schools. It's completely mapped off the Prussian system of mass education. So when you think mass production, it had to do with education and the military as well. And then the third industrial revolution was from 1969 till the early 2000s, and this had to do with computers and automation. So you guys, I'm probably the oldest one in this group. Y'all probably grew up with computers. I grew up without even a microwave in my home. So the world has changed really radically in the last couple of years. The last generation, really. The fourth industrial revolution is a continuation in some ways of the third industrial revolution. We wouldn't have it without it. But this has to do with artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, robotics, the precision economy, and bioengineering. And it's from really the 2010s to the present. And so we're in the middle of it right now. It is a time of really crazy disruption. So it's changing everything. It's changing education, economics, business, and politics. And really, as parents, we need to be asking ourselves if we're really ready for it and if we're preparing our kids to launch during this time of disruption. Because if we're preparing our kids to launch the way we launched, we're at least 20 years behind. Now, I had kids in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. So my younger kids have an older mom. And if I was getting them ready to launch the way I launched, that would be like 2 generations ago, right? And so we have to be really thinking, how are we launching our kids? Because they are going to launch into this fourth industrial revolution. And all of the futurists and pundits are all saying this is not going to be a really, 10 to 30 or 40-year industrial revolution. This is going to be an ongoing time of disruption and change because of the rate at which tech is evolving and changing. Now, I'm going to focus on education and how we can educate our own kids. But just to give you a taste of how education has really changed radically in the last couple of years, a lot of people aren't realizing that a lot of colleges and universities are closing. So a couple months ago, Wall Street Journal shared that 5 colleges around the country closed. They literally closed their doors. There's a couple reasons for this. The baby boom is over. Also, a lot of kids were aborted, sad to say. So there just is not the warm bodies coming in to fill those colleges and universities. Furthermore, a lot of kids are not going to college and university, but more than that, over half the kids who go to college are dropping out. So they have an incredible churn issue. Now, I'm in business, and if you have a churn issue, that's not a good way to run a business. So higher ed is really in trouble. If you're watching the education news too, our Ivy League schools are really coming under fire for a lot of things, and some of that is really deserved, honestly. But the Ivy Leagues are important to keep an eye on because you can't sit on a Supreme Court bench, or at least you haven't been able to until now, without an Ivy League education. You can't write for Saturday Night Live, et cetera, et cetera. So The Ivy Leagues really are the thought leaders. They're producing the thought leaders of our country for sure, and other countries too. And if the Ivy Leagues are in trouble, well, we've got a problem on our hands. So the fourth industrial revolution is changing education. One of the ways it changed it in 2010, online education was a $1 billion industry. In 2020, it was a $2.1 billion industry, and they expected it to be about a $400 billion industry by 2025. I mean, did you hear that number, from 2 billion to 400 plus billion in 5 years? But guess what? It's already gone over 800 billion. And that's not just K through 12 education. That is like all education for everybody. But if you think about those numbers online where people can access world-class education at their fingertips, traditional education is going to have a hard time competing with that. But it's also changing economics, business, politics, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to be thinking about how we're preparing our kids, because they're going to live in a world we can't yet imagine. I'm going to tell you some information about that. Hopefully I'll convince you that's true. But one of the questions I want to pose to each one of you is, will your kids be a job seeker or a job creator? Now, in 2020, when everybody got sent home, those who could pivot or work from home easily, they did okay. But I know a lot of businesses that went kaput. A lot of people lost their jobs. Some people are still trying to figure out how they're going to really, get re-educated and do something else even 5 years later. And the other thing too, a lot of the kids who were in high school at that point or college, they really had a really anemic educational experience. So they're not really as prepared as we would hope that they would be. But we really, as an educational model in America, in the public and private school system, we prepare students for jobs. And in this fourth industrial revolution, we need to be preparing them for a world that it doesn't exist, but it's coming soon. So in every industrial revolution, there are winners, losers, and there's a lot of shifting around. And it's no different today. So in the second industrial revolution, there were Cartwrights. And probably a lot of you guys have never hired a Cartwright. You probably have never, you might not even know what a Cartwright is. A Cartwright is somebody who makes the wheels for carts and buggies. But during the second industrial revolution, when we went from a horse-drawn, ag culture to an automotive culture, the Cartwright industry just went completely kaput. It doesn't exist anymore, right? However, a lot of industries grew up out of that because of the automotive industry. So we not only have the automotive industry itself, we have the tire industry, we have windshield wipers, we have windows that don't get cracked when a stone hits them. We have car washes. We have the Department of Transportation. So this one industry went down. So many other industries came up out of nothing, seemingly like miraculously. And in every industrial revolution, there is the opportunity for millionaires and billionaires to be created or to create that much wealth. Now we're in this industrial revolution where a trillionaire is on the horizon. Elon Musk is slated to become a trillionaire by the end of 2025. That is a lot of money. But I think the United States welcomed more millionaires into the millionaire club last year than ever before. So because it's a time of disruption and there's a lot of new things on tech and et cetera, there's this amazing opportunity to create wealth and to create unique lifestyles. So there's the decline of legacy industries and there's the rise of knowledge and innovation-based economies. Geography becomes much less important. We are living and working in a global gig economy, and that is not going to change anytime soon. We are going to live in a global gig economy. Our kids are going to work in that. Now, my grandmother worked for AT&T, which was our General Telephone Electric, GTE, for 35 years. And when she retired, they gave her a gold watch that said GTE on it. Thank you for your service. And I just want to tell you guys, those days are over. In fact, probably a lot of people on this call are independent contractors, and that's going to be more of the norm because it's cheaper for people who are hiring. There's more mobility and flexibility because geography is less important thanks to things like Zoom, right? Like if we go to the chat and look at where people are from, they're from Missouri and Texas and Long Island and Ohio. Oftentimes we have people from Hawaii and Singapore on our calls with us in the Middle East. So geography is less important. the connectivity, how we're connecting with people around the world, that's what is really going to rule going forward. The jobs of the future require adaptability, not just credentials. Now, I have a whole workshop series on what's going on with college and the college dilemma. Do I still think that college piece of paper matters? Yeah, I actually do. But I think as parents who are really wise and looking forward to what our kids are going to do and where they're going to live and work, we need to come up with really smart ways to hack the college degree. That's a different workshop. So we have some rising players on a new stage. I'm going to go over 6 rising emerging tech, emerging industries with you. You guys, maybe you're familiar with them, maybe you're not. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, but we can talk about it during the question and answer time if you want to. Number 1, and this came up before we even started, artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is the core of the 4th industrial revolution. AI and machine learning is powering automation, robotics, personalization, and decision making. And it is being used in healthcare, diagnostics, financial modeling, customer service with bots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, a lot of people are not realizing the power of AI. I think a lot of us are a little wary of it. I think that is actually warranted, to be honest with you. We'll talk about some emerging jobs as a result of AI, but just know that AI is here. It's not going anywhere. Some really smart people are saying they think that there's going to be a ban on the usage of AI. I don't know if there is one. I think it's going to take a while to get to that point, an international ban. But for now, AI is here. The second emerging economy is precision medicine and biotechnology. Biotech is a huge emerging field, and this is tailored healthcare based on genetics, environment, and lifestyle. CRISPR is gene editing. You can now do gene editing in utero. It's AI-driven drug discovery and wearable tech for real-time health data. Now, my husband is a big NASA space guy, so we always watch all the space movies. And if you look like at Apollo 11, when they all have their spacesuits on and it's giving information like what's your heartbeat, et cetera. Well, now you can go to Shields and you can buy a texture that actually will keep track of all of your what's going on with your heart rate and your blood pressure and all of that, and send it to your watch or whatever. So when I say wearable tech for real-time health data, it's available, it's out there, right now you can go buy it. So precision medicine and biotechnology, they've also created the Neuralink, which is, they're placing the Neuralink in the base of people's brains, and 2 quadriplegics, at least that have been admitted so far, are walking as a result of Neuralink. So there's some really crazy tech happening in healthcare. The third emerging economy might surprise you. This is emotional intelligence and human-centered design. And this has to do with anything that touches you emotionally, spiritually, physically, socially, really. As we become more high-tech, our need for connecting with real people increases because we're created to be in contact with humans, right? And so there's this economic value shift towards empathy, connection, and trust. Now, AI is going to power some mental health tools, emotion sensing tech, personalized learning, et cetera. But anything in the empath economy is going to burgeon. So counselors, pastors, physical therapists, occupational therapists, chiropractors, et cetera, digital detox coaches, et cetera, et cetera. These are great industries to go into. A lot of them are really politically, charged. So, as you're talking with your kids and thinking about where they might land vocationally or whatever, just be aware of that. Fourth, renewable energy and smart infrastructure. This has to do with solar, wind, and green hydrogen paired with artificial intelligence to optimize the usage. And this is one of the things with the precision economy. With the precision economy, it means you can know exactly what the problem is with any tech immediately, and you can send a drone or something out to fix it right away, a robot, et cetera. So the precision economy coupled with robots and other kind of infrastructure and AI is really changing how we do industry. But as far as renewable energy, smart grids, energy storage systems, and carbon neutral construction tech is on the rise. 5, advanced manufacturing and robotics. This has to do with 3D printing, the Internet of Things, nanotech, and human-robot collaboration. Now, what's going on with robots right now is pretty astounding. They can fall down and get up again. That is like a real breakthrough in robot tech. They can climb stairs, also a big breakthrough in robot tech. 3D printing. I actually had a student a couple years ago. He 3D printed a drone that flew. Some of the things that you can 3D print now are crazy. They 3D printed a liver and transplanted it into a human, and the human did not reject the liver. So they're actually 3D printing body parts from biomatter. I don't want to look too much into what that means at this point, but nanotech are little tiny drones, and different things. They're actually using it in biotech a lot too. And then human robot collaboration is becoming more of a thing. It is revolutionizing aerospace, automotive, and consumer good industries. And then lastly, the digital economy and cybersecurity. This has to do with e-commerce, fintech, blockchain, and remote work platforms. As that grows, there's a massive demand for cybersecurity because digital threats grow alongside connectivity. And one of the biggest growing industries right now is financial pirating. It's $1 billion industry. So cybersecurity is going to be more important than ever before. So let's talk about the next 5 years. Think about how old your kids are now and how old will they be in 5 years? Because in this amount of time, from 2025 to 2030, 85%, I mean, that's a huge number of the jobs have not been invented yet because of the 6 emerging economies I just talked about. And routine jobs like data entry, customer service, basic coding, etc., will probably be automated by AI. Now, one of the problems with this with this age of disruption. So you can have a lot of law clerking done by AI, but how do you become a lawyer that can manage a case without clerking first? So there's going to be some gaps, and it's going to shift and change a lot of different industries, right? Because some of the entry routine jobs that you must do as a step ladder to the more advanced jobs are going to be taken over by AI and robotics and things like that. But how do you get to that more advanced level of thinking if you don't do those basic jobs? So there's a lot to figure out. The emerging economies are the most vulnerable, also the most adaptive, and the place where there's more money to be made than ever before. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the fastest growing jobs in the next 5 years. I did this workshop earlier this week, and most people had never heard of any of these. I can explain some of them. It might be good to just take a screenshot and go do some research on your own about them, but I'll go over it really quickly. I have a couple of these, more than one place, so I apologize for that. But AI ethics officers, because guess what? Artificial intelligence doesn't have a worldview other than the programmer. It doesn't have its own set of ethics like a human would be, because robots and computers are never going to be human, and humans are not computers. So robots and computers at this point are very good at tasks. Human beings are really good at projects. As AI grows, it's going to be better at projects, but it's never going to have a human brain. So there's that. Digital health coaches, and I'm going to refer over to the other column, which says digital detox consultations. This is becoming a growing issue with people who are working online all the time, is that they're getting overwhelmed by the constant information coming at them. They're not offline very much. Even when we're not on the computer, we have our face in a tablet or on our phone. So we always have access to data and screens. And what they're finding, especially with kids, is that the longer you're on the phone, the more white matter is in your brain. That's really a problem. It's not gray matter, it's white matter. So it's kind of like the important part of your brain is not developing and growing. So digital health coaches, digital detox consultants, these are going to be growing fields. Cybersecurity analysts, of course, this is a growing field. I live in South Dakota, and at one of the state schools here, they have it's SDU. The federal government has poured a lot of money into creating a really great cybersecurity program over there. And so if you have somebody interested in it, it'd be a good school to look at because they have people coming and recruiting right out of that program. VR designers, green energy techs, augmented reality experience designers, time management coaches for AI augmented workers. part of the deal with the precision economy is the precision means you're maximizing the time and the energy and the output of either the person or the thing, the robot. And when that's why gamification is such a big thing at this point, and it's going to be growing because it's a great motivation for people. People like to play games. They like to win. They like to get badges and awards, et cetera, et cetera. But as companies are pulling out as much as they can from a human being, the human being needs time to de-stress. So that's what the time management coach is for. Climate adaptation specialist, human machine teaming manager, personal data broker, virtual habitat design for the metaverse, remote health and wellness coaches, and synthetic biology engineers. So as you can see from this list, there's a lot of new things coming. They're here, but they're going to be developed. So what and how do you educate your kids during this time of disruption? It's a burning question for me because I've graduated my own kids from homeschool. We homeschooled for 30 years, and I've been working with homeschoolers around the world really since 2010, and since 2018 when we started True North. I'm really concerned with our kids. I'm really concerned about how we educate them so they can thrive and stand firm in this time of true disruption. We have an opportunity right now. We can either embrace this disruption and know that we're created for this time and this place, or we can say, oh my gosh, I want to just become a Luddite and not even deal with it. But it's here and it's here to stay. The biggest disrupted industries are going to be manual labor and low skill office work. These are the most at risk. However, this is my thought about it. A lot of people say, okay, manual labor is just going to be taken over by robotics. But the deal is most robots cost a lot of money. And so I think, there's still going to be a real need for people to come and clean houses and to do a lot of the manual labor because it's actually affordable. And you don't have to have a technician to fix a broken person. They have to take care of that on their own, right? Where you would have to fix a broken robot. However, entire industries like journalism, trucking, accounting, they're all being redefined. Trucking right now, there's a lot of driverless trucks. I live in the middle of ag country. I'm literally surrounded by fields where I live, and you can drive a tractor with a satellite and a computer in the cab of the truck. So even the ag industry is being completely changed because of precision economy, robotics, and AI. Right now, some of the old farmsteads in South Dakota, they're just putting barns out, pole barns where a homestead used to be, and they're just housing tractors. And then it's like satellite operated. It's kind of crazy. So then a mechanic just goes out once a month and does maintenance on it. It's pretty crazy, honestly. There's great opportunity. AI can truly amplify human potential if we teach our kids to become autodidacts, if we teach them to be entrepreneurial thinkers, and if we teach them to be a critical thinker, to be creative, to communicate well, and to collaborate. So the emerging economies are these. Our kids are going to live and work in a global gig economy. It is going to be all about mobile first innovation. So it's all about what you can view and do on your screen, your little tiny screen, your phone. This is going to be the global opportunity pipeline. Now, I mentioned I lived in South Dakota. I am not a super techie person. I literally found out I had a flashlight on my phone a couple years ago by accident. I had to call my son in college to find out what on earth was happening with my phone and how to turn off the flashlight. Okay, that's how techie I am. I mean, I know applications and the things I work on every day, but I don't program or anything like that. However, I have 2 online companies from South Dakota because of this global opportunity pipeline. And any of you guys and your kids could do that too. So AI tools can really help rural entrepreneurs go global and people in third world countries, et cetera, et cetera. It's really an amazing opportunity, not just like for work, but for ministry and for collaborative opportunities. My son and daughter-in-law were in a small town in Albuquerque last weekend that had fires, and several people lost their homes. And they were able to get online and say, we need lip chapstick, and we need water, and we need clothes, and we need shoes in these sizes, and we need gift cards. And within like less than a week, like just really 24 hours, they had the things they were looking for because of this global ability to reach out and touch people. Pretty amazing. During the fourth industrial revolution, I believe more than ever before, it is all about homeschooling for the win. Now, homeschooling has changed a lot. I started homeschooling in 1991. There wasn't a lot to read about. We knew people had gone to jail, so we weren't outside during the day. We were kind of like undercover homeschoolers in Southern California for a couple years. So homeschooling's changed radically. You can outsource about anything. You can have world-class teachers like what we offer at True North Academy come to your home via Zoom and teach your kids. Like our science classes are taught by a PhD in microbiology, et cetera. So it's really an amazing time to homeschool. But the obsolete factory model of homeschooling is more obsolete than ever before. Like just throw it out. If you're considering putting your kids in public or private school, like really, really rethink that. Because right now, the people who are going to win in this fourth industrial revolution are going to be skill focused. And the factory model of education is not skill focused. They need to be flexible and adaptable. They need to have time and distraction management skills. And really, it should be about a personalized education. The only place I know to where really get a personalized education is in homeschooling. And that doesn't mean you have to be the person who is teaching your kids every single class. It means that you are the mentor, you are the one who are working with your kids and in your spouse. It's a family project where you are saying, we are going to create a personalized education for our kids. Because guess what? Your kids are living in this time of crazy disruption, and they're going to work and have to support their family in this time of crazy disruption. And the best way to equip them for that is by a personalized education. This personalized education should include these 6 following things. Seriously, how do your kids think critically? Now, one of the best ways you can do to develop critical thinking is to get your kids off the phone, off the devices, because it creates passivity in their brain. It is not developing the neural pathways they need to really be critical thinkers. There's a lot of other things you can do to develop critical thinking, but one of the best things you can do is don't give your kid a cell phone and keep them off tablets. It makes me so sad when you're driving, when you're pushing your cart through Sam's or the grocery store, and everybody under 5 is sitting in the cart, sitting on a tablet. They're not looking at the beats. They're not talking to their mom about what they're going to make for dinner or talking to the other person as the cart goes by. And that is part of how we develop critical thinking, is by being aware of the world. So get your kids off tablets and screens. Creativity. A lot of people don't realize you can actually teach creativity. Now, I taught creative writing for a very long time, and everybody that came into my creative writing classes were like, great, it's free time. We're going to sit down and write the great American novel, and it's just going to be all about what's in my head. Au contraire, we started out with formal poetry. And the reason why we did that is because everybody who has done anything creative, be that music or art or dance or athletics or anything that takes creativity, knows you have to start with the basics and you have to be skilled at the basics. What are the basics of writing? It is understanding the rhythm and cadence of language and speech and writing, what makes a really solid sentence, how to be creative with it. And it's about tropes, figures of speech. So that's what we started with, because I was giving kids in creative writing kind of like the scales of writing. Just like if you were in music, you would learn the scales and you would have the scales memorized to really know how to do music, right? So you can teach your kids skills for creativity. Collaboration, again, they're going to live and work in a global gig community. And what does that mean? It means they're going to be on Zoom or Teams or whatever app they use with people from around the world. Now, once a week, I am in a group of business people from around the world, and they're young and old. They're from literally all over the world. So these people have different languages, they eat different things, they practice different religions, they have radically different worldviews. And those are the people that I'm talking with once a week. And sometimes it can be a little intimidating, because some of these like 22-year-olds are making $8 million. And I'm sitting there going, wow, what do I have to share in this conversation? You know what I mean? So it's entering those rooms, and it's understanding that you don't have to have everything in common to really have a great discussion. And that's what we need to really be talking with our kids about. Along with that, we need to teach our kids that if they have integrity, that means you don't give up who you are and your worldview for the other person in the room. That means you sit with who you are and you are at peace with that. You don't say, oh, you're black or Muslim or pink or green, and so I need to be ashamed of who I am. No, it doesn't mean that. It means you sit with integrity with who you are. We've got to train our kids and teach our kids the importance of that. And then communication skills. The number one thing most people who are hiring are looking for with new hires is, can you sell by verbal, by speaking, and can you sell by writing? What does that mean? Are you persuasive? That's all it means. Can you persuade somebody to your point of view? And listen, all of us are in sales. If we are homeschooling, we're selling our kid on math every single day. Can I get a witness? We're all in sales. And if you're not sure how to sell good communication, start with a good persuasive essay writing class if your kid is in 7th grade or up. And if you're not sure where to find one, Julia Jenks teaches it at True North Academy, and it's one of the best classes you will ever pay for. She was a news producer for years and wrote for Better Homes and Gardens. But your kids have got to have solid communication skills because, again, they're going to live and work in a global gig economy. Helping your kids become an autodidact means that they won't be taken out by things like 2020. An autodidact is just somebody who can learn without formal education. So you don't need a degree to learn. Now, one of the reasons I own two online companies, listen, my degrees are in mental health, and they're not in business. They're not in education. I never was a public school teacher or anything like that. I have a marriage and family therapy degree. My husband's a clinical psychologist. Social ills and those kind of things are more my deal. But I have online companies because I'm an autodidact, because I can go, okay, this is what I need to learn. And I go get the books and I go find the people and I go have the interviews and I figure it out. We've got to teach our kids that almost everything is figure outable. And if we don't teach them how to fail, then they're never going to learn that. And this is what I mean. The scientific method is one of the best tools you can equip your kids with, because what it does is it teaches them to form a hypothesis, test the hypothesis, test the hypothesis. If they fail at it, then they just go back to the drawing board. It doesn't mean they've failed. And so we've got to teach our kids to get over this idea that they have to do everything perfectly or well. So autodidactism, and then an entrepreneurial mindset. Now, not all of our kids are going to be entrepreneurs, and that is okay. But an entrepreneurial mindset just means having this idea that everything's figure outable. You can go resource yourself, because most of our kids are going to live and work in a global gig economy. That means they're going to have to sell their stuff. They're going to have to invoice. They're going to have to close the sale. They're going to have to do some marketing. They might have to do some accounting, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I mean by entrepreneurial mindset. Autodidacts for the win. This is the number one thing. And as homeschoolers, we have such a great opportunity to do this. Now, by this, I don't mean that your kids should be independent learners at 7. I kind of don't like that ideology in the homeschool world. I think it's bad pedagogy. We get this awesome opportunity to actually teach our kids and mentor them and sit with them and wrestle through things that they're struggling with them. It's a great privilege and honor. So don't be so quick to say, you're 12 or 15 or 7 and you should be doing this on your own. We have to help and mentor our kids become that autodidact. So all of this, I've just given you a whole lot of stuff. What does this mean for our kids? To be future ready, they need to have skills, actual skills in their toolbox, plus experience so that it can really thrive in the global gig economy. So that means internships, mentorship, real world projects. By real world projects, I mean, can you give them a budget and tell them that they're going to go shopping and cook and clean up dinner? Can they do that 5 days in a row? Do they want bunnies? Can you give them a budget and tell them that they need to figure out how to write or how to build a rabbit hutch and go to Menards and get the stuff and then build the hutch and then house the rabbits and keep them alive? And can they figure out how much food they have to have? These are what I mean by real world projects. It doesn't have to be like a life and death project, but it should be something that they have some autonomy with and that they have to ask for help with and that they probably get to fail a little bit with so that they can go get the help that they need. They should also have cross-disciplinary knowledge. And homeschoolers, we do this pretty easily. We're going to teach English and history together. Cross-discipline, woo, for the win. Well, I mean, even more than that. I mean, I'm coming from a Christian perspective, and so that's our worldview. That's always the start of where we're at. Cross-disciplinary knowledge from my worldview is God is the center of all things. So when we're studying science, we're really looking at the wonder of God's creation. And then what does that have to do with the Bible? Well, guess what? Job is chock full of science and math and all sorts of other things, along with the rest of the Bible. The Star of Bethlehem is a great project to really get into because the planetary stuff, anyway, there's so much in there. Math, English, history, how does it all tie together? do morning baskets and have those kind of um, those kind of discussions with your kids at least once a day. Now, we did a morning basket for an hour every morning, and my kids are 3.5 to 5 years apart each because, like all of you, I planned my life and then I had my life. So none of my kids are close together in age. So when we did a morning basket, often we would have like a preschooler, an elementary school, middle schooler, and a high schooler. But we would get out the maps, and the older kids would teach the younger kids. The younger kids would make a mess and ask crazy questions. And it was a really great time of talking and being together and really struggling and wrestling through questions that some of us knew more about than others. But at a certain point, if you're doing it right and if your kids are smart and they love learning, they're going to know more than you. And that's when it gets really super fun and exciting. So, cross disciplinary knowledge, financial flexibility. By this, I mean your kids need to get through college or whatever training program they can with as little debt as possible because of the deregulation of student loans. Um, Dave Ramsey has a great video on this about how the deregulation of student loans means that there's no accountability. So if your kid takes out $10,000, pays on it for 3 years after they graduate, breaks their leg, can't work for a year, and then goes back to pay on their loan that they paid off $3,000 worth and they only owed seven, they might owe 11 or 12,000 at the end of that year that they broke their leg on. I know that I went through that really fast, but believe me when I say that just a little bit of debt can be decades of debt for your kids, and it can grow exponentially because the student loans sell the loans. They sell them and sell them and sell them. And it's this like game where you don't really know what's going on, and they're the winners. The federal government doesn't give your kid a student loan because they think your kid is brilliant. The federal government makes $1 billion a year off of student loans, so it's a business to them, and really it's enslaving your kid. So that's why we started the dual degree program at True North, where your kids can earn an accredited college degree during high school, because the debt is really enslaving a lot of kids. So teach them how to do finances, teach them to be responsible when they go on for training. Is there going to be a good return on the investment for the training that they're getting, and have those kind of conversations with them. Furthermore, most of your kids have never taken out any kind of debt. They haven't taken a credit card out or bought a car or anything. And then when they go to get student loans, it's like play money. $20,000. Yeah, that doesn't sound like too much, but they don't really might not know what that means. Entrepreneurship, if I was going to do our homeschool over, the number one thing I would do differently is I would have every single one of my kids start a business in middle school and high school. And maybe they don't do that the rest of their lives, but I would like them to have had entrepreneurship experience. My younger two kids did a little bit with some of the businesses that I had. And it is hard when you have 5 kids and you're doing a lot of stuff. It can be tough to make all that happen, but I wish that we had done more of that. Again, our kids are going to be independent contractors, freelancers, and remote workers. So if they can see what that looks like, either through your job or somebody else's job, that would be a great thing to invite them into. And then teach them the ability to pivot. We all saw this in 2020. Those of us who could work from home, we did okay. People who couldn't really struggled, and some people are still struggling today because of that. The best way to AI proof your kids' skills is by developing their human skills. Soft skills are more important than ever before. These are things like collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking, but it's also things like integrity, time and distraction management, those kind of things. I did a podcast for a year and a half where I just did a soft skill a month. But understanding those human skills, can your kids shake hands, look somebody in the eye? Can they introduce people? Can they write a good email that doesn't just say, yo, bro, do this? Can they say, hello, Mr. or Mrs., this is what I'm thinking of? Those kind of skills are soft skills. I want to talk for a minute about the role of faith, purpose, and values. Regardless of what your faith stance is, we live in a postmodern world where it's really about moral relativism and digital confusion. And our kids, the stats are out, they're more anxious, they're more depressed, and they are literally more suicidal than ever before. It's actually a crisis in young men, the suicide rate. My family personally knows probably 8 young men who have committed suicide in the last 5 years. It is truly a health epidemic. So part of that has to do with the fact that it's moral relativism. And when you go down that path, all of a sudden, nothing matters too much anymore. Kids need a sense of true north. They need to understand that They have a calling in this world. Community is important, and they're an important part of that community. And they need to have some clarity about their life that they are important. We have to discipline our kids for resiliency. This is the importance of failing. Failing and being awkward teaches resiliency. Um, you hear this all the time from young kids. Oh my gosh, that would be so awkward. Listen, I grew up in a time where if you wanted to go on a date, you had to have that guy come to your house and meet your dad and get grilled. Talk about awkward. Like all of life was awkward at that point, and we just accepted it. So we need to stop making things so smooth for our kids. Friction, awkwardness, all that stuff builds resiliency. And we need to teach our kids about integrity. What does that mean? Because they live in play in a world of avatars where they just put on a different idea and identity and then they take it off. But integrity means that you are the same online, in gaming rooms, in your grandma's living room. Who you are at the core of your being doesn't change for external realities. And that is against postmodern thought, but it also is going to keep our kids alive. And then what does leadership look like? Leadership means maybe being the president of the United States or a company or washing dishes. Leadership takes a lot of different roles and responsibilities, and teaching our kids to be servants in whatever way God has called them to, it's going to give them a sense of purpose and clarity. I really believe that education is a transmission of culture. I did not come up with that beautiful saying. Will and Ariel Durant did. They were the original history of the world writers. They were movers and shakers way back in the 1890s, early 1900s. And they said that education is a transmission of culture. Everyone from the Catholic Church to Adolf Hitler understands that, and the public school system does too. If you can get kids at a young age, you've got them for a very, very long time, probably life. And as home educators, we have this amazing opportunity to transmit hope, purpose, and joy to our kids, and we need to not miss that. It's tough in this day and age because there's a lot of concerning things happening in the world. No matter what aisle of the political world you stand on, there's just a lot of concerning things happening. And really, we need to help our kids curate what they're listening to, what they're watching, and make sure that they know that there's a reason they're born and they're living during this time. There's a purpose for their life, and that they need to walk in that purpose. And people need it. And hopefully they can find joy in that. So, what are some practical steps? What can we do as parents and educators? Well, we need to build digital skills and human skills. I think it's really interesting that a lot of the high tech, big tech company owners don't let their kids get on tech at all. Not a little bit. They don't do a half an hour a day. No, nothing. They don't have tablets. They don't have phones. They got nothing. But they're in these really innovative, creative, personalized, private homeschool kind of situations. So we need to really be working on our kids' human skills, life skills. Help your kids create a project-based portfolio. Beth Purcell at True North, every writing class her kids are in, every student in her classes leave a class of hers with a project-based portfolio. They can submit it to college, they can apply for jobs, etc. with it. And then leverage online academies like True North. We're really focusing on competency and calling it True North. We're not just taking your money and hope to goodness your kid learns something. We are skill focused. So every class has a purpose. We want your kids leaving every single class with real life transferable skills. And we want them to have soft skills and life skills as a result of that class. So that is the focus of all of our teacher training and our weekly emails and newsletters and all the things, because like education is a transmission of culture. We want your kids to know the subject and also have these other skills as well. Stay informed. There's books, podcasts, and parent communities that you can join. Head on over to It's Not That Hard to Homeschool Facebook page. Cherith's been doing a beautiful job over there, really providing a lot of resources, information for people. We've got blog posts and podcasts. And True North obviously is a great place to come and really be aware of what's coming in the future. We're really focusing our entire program about that. And then rethink your focus on college admissions. So many people spend their kids' high school career getting college ready. And I think that might be a little short-sighted at this point in the world. That's why instead of college ready, we're getting college done in high school. If you want to know more about that, I would love to share with you our cutting edge program. There's not another one like it in the world, where kids do a combination of live and self-paced classes. They can get through college, accredited college, without debt and a degree. So take some time to audit your child's learning for fourth industrial revolution readiness. I'm going to take a drink here. Make sure your kids have foundational fluency. And by that, I mean language and numeric literacy. So the test scores in American students are in, and they're kind of sad. I'm going to be honest with you. Our students graduating from public schools are functionally illiterate. That means that they can function at a fifth grade language level. If you can function at that level, you can read, but you can't synthesize and synergize information. That's one of the important things about memory work. Anybody who says if you can Google it, you don't need to memorize it, doesn't understand the brain, and it's terrible educational pedagogy. If you don't have it memorized, your brain can't do its amazing, beautiful thing and put that information and spit out something new and unique and creative. So memory work is important, language and numeric literacy. Numeric literacy is addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, percents, etc. So that when they get to algebra, they have those basics memorized and they can do the algebraic formula, which is a combination of a bunch of little things, right? It's a project, not a task. So a lot of kids get to algebra and go, I stink at algebra because they don't have the tasks of numeric literacy down cold. They don't have it memorized. So then when they go to the project of algebra, they can't do it without going 3, 6, 9. So anyway, numeric literacy. Not only do your kids need to be exposed to a breadth of information, but they need to be able to think deeply. They need to be able to inquire, ask good questions, synthesize information, spot patterns, and understand big ideas. That's going to take some work, some Socratic questioning on your part, probably some work on your part, because it's hard to teach people to think deeply and have a breadth of thinking if you don't know how to do it yourself. But there's ways that you can learn and learn with your kids. You don't have to know everything. You can learn with them. That's one of the beautiful things about homeschooling. You get to learn along with them. It's so much fun. Communication and collaboration. Can your kids explain ideas well? Can they actively listen? Do they care about what the other person's saying? We all know when we've been talking to somebody and they could care less about what we're saying, right? So teaching your kids to actively listen, and can they work in teams? Are they curious problem solvers, willing to try new things, build, design, and create? Can they be creative? Can they innovate? And do they have life readiness and autonomy? Can they manage their own time, goals? Can they follow through? Do they have discernment? Do they have a sense of purpose? And are they resilient? I just want to offer some final encouragement before we take questions. Don't panic. It might seem like there's a lot. I mean, I've covered a ton of information. I've talked almost nonstop for 56 minutes. So, I mean, this has been like probably a little bit like waterboarding, but don't panic. Just prepare. And you can just do one thing at a time. Future ready kids are thinkers, creators, and collaborators. And your kids are already those things. So all you have to do is throw some time and intention towards who they are naturally anyway, and help them really grow and develop as thinkers, creators, and collaborators. The best way to predict the future is to create it. That's why Peter Drucker, he was one of the big business people. He's probably still alive, and brilliant businessman. And I think, we have that opportunity. We can create a future that is worth living in and that we really are proud to launch our kids into, but it's going to take some time and intention, and homeschooling allows us to do that. So, thank you for listening to this very long and involved um, presentation. If you guys want to ask questions or make any comments or anything, I'm happy to do that. If you want to talk about high school or anything in particular, I'm happy to do that too. So if you guys want to just unmute yourself, it's a small enough group that we could just chat. But yeah, would love to hear from you guys. Do I think classical education, like Classical Conversations, Memoria Press, Well Trained Mind, which really focus on memorization, logic, well rounded intellectual pursuit, is still relevant in preparing our kids? I absolutely do. I've always called myself a classical unschooler. When we first started homeschooling, there wasn't much out there except for Dorothy Sayers' essay and John Holt's work. So, yeah, really, actually, I think classical education has a lot to offer. It's really focused on virtue and developing the person as a whole spiritual beings. So absolutely, I think it's very, very important. I think memory work is one of the best study skills tools you can help your kids develop and learn, because you can learn how to memorize well, right? And so I do think absolutely a classical education is really important. I do think some of the programs, listen, I don't call True North classical, though. Like 80% of our teachers are coming from a classical pedagogy because we're online, so that just kind of precludes classical. And a lot of the classical schools are neoclassical, which is totally fine. But just I think classical education is absolutely 100% of really high value. And I do also think, though, that we need to make sure that we're really teaching our kids life skills and soft skills along the way as well. And I do think, I mean, this is my own personal experience. I think classical, we can kind of end up in a silo and think we're better than other people, which is not really the point of education. So it's not, we're not becoming super educated so that we're better than others. We're becoming educated so that we can live and serve among other people, right? So as long as we keep that in mind, I think it's a very valuable pedagogy. Absolutely. Somebody asked about the dual degree program at True North. It is a 4-year program. The kids take 10 classes a year over a 12-month year, not over a 10-month or 9-month year. So it's a combination of live online classes and self-paced classes. Once they're done with the classes, they go to a private college portal. They do a study guide. They take a test. Once they pass that test, that credit is banked, and after 120 credits, they are issued a transcript and an accredited degree from our partner universities and colleges. So it is, they don't come and take credit and transfer that to like the local state school or anything like that. It's kind of an all-in program, but it's less than the cost of a private high school in your area. I know that for a fact because I live in South Dakota and it's less than here, which we're about as cheap as you can get. And so they get 2 accredited degrees at the same time. If you're interested, leave your name and I'll send you a couple videos that go really into depth about the program. But you're always welcome to schedule a dual degree academic advising, and we'll answer any questions that you might have. And you might be able to transfer in some high school work that your kids have already done too. So we have kids who are joining actually this week. They're still going to try to get a few more classes done before the end of summer, and they're going to start their sophomore year of high school as a sophomore in college at the same time. So it's a really exciting program. I do think the piece of paper, the college degree still does matter. Also look into certification programs and other alternative kind of programs. I think the trades are going to be really important in this fourth industrial revolution because I think I think robotics and AI, how effective are they going to be to come to your house and fix your plumbing? I think it's going to be a ways before we get there. So the trades are still going to be important.
Excuse me, Lisa.
Yes,
Hey, this is Carl Johnson. Um, I just want to first off say thank you so much for taking the time tonight and sharing that with us. Uh,
yes,
it's very informative. You're very passionate about it, and I can just tell you're like well informed. So thank you. There's a lot for me and my wife to think about.
yeah,
My question for you is, you mentioned I found it really fascinating the future jobs that are growing,
yes.
and a lot of them are obviously digital and virtual things like that. And then you mentioned in your talk, that we need to prepare them how to navigate with their phones. And you also said, I think a few times, keep them away from phones, away from tablets. So
Yeah.
how do you navigate the tension between this is how we live and also these phones are terrible?
So yeah, that's a great question. And you're right. I'm honestly, I'm a little torn myself. I think young kids need to stay away from phones. I think toddlers absolutely. I think really kids don't need phones until they're 16 and up. I think it's very interesting that the tech uh, gurus, they don't let their kids have tablets or phones or anything, literally nothing, until after they graduate from high school. So I think older high schoolers can do okay. I'm going to share an anecdotal story, not to scare anybody, but just to highlight my concern about phones and tablets and things. I am friends with a person who owns an alternative college program. The kids are really in community a lot. They do these big projects and stuff like that. And he said 100% of the boys and about 80% of the girls come to that program. They're homeschool Christian families at 18 Did you hear the number? 100% of the guys and 80% or so of the girls addicted to porn. He said that most of them don't get phones until they're like 15 or 16, but just, and so they kind of find porn later on. But once they find it, it's really hard to get off of it. And I know I have a friend, Sean Artizzoni, who owns Arc Cyber, which is a program to help kids keep safe. We were talking this last week because we're going to collaborate on a project. And he said parents really have no idea of the nefarious intensity at which a lot of this stuff is coming at your kids. And so if your kids have a tablet or a phone, wherever they're at online, you be at too. And most parents aren't going to do that. I'll be honest. Most parents are going to say, you know, I trust you. You're a smart kid. You know what morality is and stuff like that. But what parents aren't taking into account is that the entire world of ugly garbage, it has your kid's number, because the algorithm is going to find them out. Now I have 3 girls and 2 boys, and we have all the things like, you know, the keep your computer sanitized kind of things on our computers, and we always have. And yet, both of my boys have had porn find them. They haven't gone looking for it. And so I think we have to be super aware of that as parents. And again, if we're going to let our kids have access to that kind of stuff, we need to be wherever they're at. And we need to know how to check it. Because again, uh, you know, there's just a lot of stuff going on online that we as parents aren't aware of. I mean, I'm pretty aware of things online because I live and work on it all the time. And yet every week I'm learning about stuff that I have literally never heard of before. And so we've got to be just super, super aware as parents. I think the best way to get our kids acclimated to this crazy world is to really be very judicious and careful with them about anything online until they get to a certain age, like 15 or 16, and then really talk about digital health and keeping themselves safe online and those kind of things, and being with them online. And I mean, of course, they're going to have AI to contend with. We just got we're accredited by Cognia. One of the issues Cognia has been having with every school around the world, whether they're in person or online, is AI cheating. And you listen, our kids are going to they're going to find these things, whether we show it to them or not, because our kids are smart. One of the things we've noticed at True North is that it's all the honors kids that are finding AI and learning how to use it and manipulate it and manage it and come up with ways to hide the fact that they're using it. And so it's really kind of a problem because I use AI, I would say almost every day. But the thing is, I know how to write. I know how to compute in my head. I know how to do these basic skills. And a lot of our kids haven't developed those skills yet. And now they're using AI. And the like really the data is in, the more you use it when you don't have those skills developed, it means you're not creating neural pathways to develop them. So I feel like as parents, we're walking a tightrope, right? Because yeah, how do you live and work and be in a really high tech world and keep your kids safe and protected? Um, we don't want to be Luddites necessarily, although maybe some of us are called to be that. We don't want to stick our head in the sands. We want our kids to be out there, but we want them to be safe and moral and okay and healthy. The more our kids are online, the more they have mental health issues, et cetera, et cetera. So I would just say you've got to be really aware of the apps that your kids are on. Some apps are really garbage and they are literally destroying our kids' mental health before our very eyes. And you can research some of those apps. They're common apps. There's industry or businesses now that rate the apps and how they really degrade mental health. So I would say you want to give your kids a really rock solid education. You want to keep them from online habit forming. That's really the thing. Like, I don't think it's a problem to watch videos, or I mean, one of the things we do in our home, because we're boring like this, is we share funny memes on Instagram. Okay, we're sending them to each other because there's a lot of clever things online, right? But help your kids form good habits, and then digital detox as a family. That can be a Sabbath. It can be whatever, where you just have a whole day or a couple days a week where you do no tech at all, because you've got to detox your brain. So I think it's tech is changing really quickly, but here's the thing. I grew up with no tech because I'm that old. It wasn't around. The internet was not around. I have kids who grew up without some internet, right? And yet I learned it really quickly. And I think that is what a lot of the tech gurus are counting on with their kids is that if you have the foundation of education and you know how to learn for yourself, once tech's in front of you, you can learn it very, very quickly. So I mean, if you feel convicted that they need some experience with tech, then you're just going to have to really navigate. And I would say have conversations with your husband or spouse or your wife and your kids about what's going on in the world with tech. Um, and really talk about some of the evils of porn. Porn is not the worst thing out there, but if you think about some of these things from a consumer point of view, if a company can get your kid addicted to something, the lifetime value of that consumer is pretty high. So if they can get a kid addicted to porn, for instance, at a very young age, the lifetime value of that consumer is pretty high. Like if they start consuming porn at 15 versus 25, they have an extra decade of earning, right? And a lot of these companies that are nefarious, that's exactly what they're looking at. They're not looking at the soul of your child or the mental health of your child. They're looking at the lifetime value of that consumer. So we have to have those kind of conversations with our kids too. I think it's a tricky world to navigate, and I wish I had like a really easy answer for you, but I don't. I really don't. And a lot of kids that are no tech, then they go to college. I think somebody said that if they have no experience with tech and then they go on to college or whatever, they're going to be exposed to a lot of things. Yeah, they are. And so that's why I really think parents, we need to have those conversations with our kids about higher education and academia too, because if you look at what's happening on college campuses, I hate to say this, but academics are not the number one thing happening on college campuses. It's not sex anymore either. It used to be everybody was having sex with each other, but right now it's becoming almost a sexless society in a bizarre way. So some of those issues have changed a little bit. That's kind of going a little bit far afield, but I think having awkward, hard conversations with your kids and really being prayerful and mindful about who they are, how sensitive they are. Some kids are more sensitive than others. Some kids are not going to be swayed by what's coming down the pike. Others are going to be really, um, just because of their personality, going to be more quick to acclimate to some things. And then make sure that you have um, all those kind of helps that are going to keep porn off your screen and keep your kids from certain sites and those kind of things too. But I think a lot of conversations, your kids' humanity is more important than if they know tech, which Carl, that's all I have to offer with that because I think we're all navigating it with better and worse degrees of success.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, anybody else have anything they'd like to add to that? I think it's something we talk about in the teachers training almost every single week. I'll be honest with you. Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to add the reality of it is we just have to remain prayerful and you do have to introduce your children to it. You cannot avoid it. I tried to keep phones from my children for the longest, but when they started doing certain programs, taking classes at college, everything requires a phone, a tablet, a laptop, even taking certain tests. In order for you to take the test, you had to have a laptop. One of my sons is in college. In order for you to take attendance, you have to take your phone, scan a QR code that the teacher puts up daily so that you can be marked as being present to receive the credit that's part of the percentage of the class. And so the question for us has to become kind of like, like you said, like how do we balance it out? And part of it too is we have to teach our children, it's out there, whether you're on the phone or not the phone. So
Yeah.
it becomes we're called to steward them and to be the watchmen. But at a certain point, we have to teach them how to gatekeep themselves as well, because they're not going to be with us 24/7. And it's just very prevalent. Even if they go to the library, there's access. So it's kind of like teaching them, putting it before them, and teaching them how to use it is kind of like what's working for us. So I just wanted to share that.
Thanks. That's super helpful. You're right. I mean, tech is everywhere, and it is the world we live in. Yeah. I really think gatekeeping is a great word, helping our kids understand how to gatekeep for themselves. Yeah, that's a great word. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, thanks for being here, you guys. If you have any questions about True North Academy, we're taking enrollment. On that note, let me talk about online classes. We're taking enrollment for the 25-26 school year, and we offer math, science, English, history, 7 foreign languages, and a variety of marketable tech skill-based classes. So video editing, audio editing, there's a certification program with one of them. And we're really trying to think through like how to really prepare our kids for tech, and really help them build skills that are going to, transfer throughout life, no matter what they do. Most of our kids are going to have 12 to 15 different jobs over the course of their vocational life, probably in different industries. So building those transferable skills is going to be really important for our kids too. But if you have any questions about True North Academy, or it's not that hard, please reach out to us. You can start a chat with us at truenorthhomeschool.academy. It's a chat bot, but it comes to a human person. And we have Facebook groups. We'd love to see you in any of those. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to do another workshop tomorrow from 1 to 3 on what a homeschool mom actually does. And I would love to see you there as well. But if you have other thoughts or questions later on, please reach out to me. I'm always curious how parents are navigating this crazy world, and hope this is giving you some things to think about and some resources that you might not otherwise have had. And I will talk to you guys soon. So thank you so much. This has been great. I've really appreciated talking with you guys, and hope to touch base with you soon. Bye, everybody. Okay, I will, if you want information about the dual degree program, I will try to get that to you after. Yeah, thanks so much, you guys. Bye, everybody.